we start our lesson on user input. So as usual, there's a little video here that we're going to watch through. I'm not going to watch through the whole things, but I encourage you guys to.
Hi, in this video we are going to show you how you can get user input in your programs. So first, programs are much more fun when we can get input from the user. Then we can get data from them and do something interesting with it. So there are three functions we're going to use to get user input: readLine, readInt, and readFloat. And each of those takes a prompt. So let's see how we use those. Well, we use readLine when we want to read strings of text from the user. So if we wanted to get the user's name, we could use the code below. Their name is equal to readLine and then enter name. And then the value that they enter gets stored in a variable called name. If we want to read integers from the user, we can use readInt. So we say var age equals readInt, enter age. That will pop up a dialog and they can type in their age, and then we can print the age. If we want to read floats, or real numbers from the user, we can use readFloat. So var costs equals readFloat, enter cost. So let's go into our editor and see what that looks like. So
Okay, so all he's saying here is that there are three different ways that you can get user input. This differs from Swift in that in Swift, a lot of the times you end up using readLine and then casting afterward. And a lot of the times when we've gotten input from our users, we were using the it was the quiz template on Playgrounds, and then that gave us kind of similar commands to this that we could input. So let's go ahead and continue, and I'm going to go ahead and work on the exercise here. Oh boy, we've got a little weirdness going on here. I'm going to have to go over the chat a little bit, see if that'll fix it. Yeah, that'll fix it. What does that do to our window? Oh, that's fine. That's really not a big deal because it's showing up in front of the chat here. Just shrink the chat a little bit, and I can just hide my score from you guys. That'll be perfect. Okay, so here's the user input quiz. We're asking for a number. Well, integers are a type of number and floats are a type of number. They're just different types of numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that one. Use to ask the user of the program to enter text. That was going to be readLine. All right, and then here's the example. Let's just go ahead and run the code, and it's going to ask us for our name, and my name is Fox, and my age is, do I really want to tell you guys? I'm going to be 57 today. We'll see how close that actually is. And there we go. There's our program right there. And remember that then you can go ahead and continue. Okay, and now here's the exercise. This is the interesting part. So prompt the user for their name, then how many apples and how many oranges they would like to buy. Print out the name that was given and show how many apples and oranges they wanted. Okay. So this is really nice. Over here, there's a quick doc over here that will help us. So it gives you kind of some examples of what you want to have available to you, or things that you have available. So I know that I will need to take their name. So I need to, let's see, prompt the user for their name. So so we're going to use the prompt here. So var string. So there's a couple different ways that you could end up doing this as far as prompting the user goes, but I really like the fact that they have the prompt integrated here. So read line, what is your name? You could also say something like, please enter your name. Okay, and I'm going to change that variable to name. Okay, prompt the user for their name. How many apples? Okay, so I'm going to create a variable called num apples, and I'm going to say read. These are integers, right? So I only want the user to give me an integer. Because why would I want that? Well, it's because very rarely am I going to be able to purchase half an apple unless I'm in some situation where, like, I'm in like an already processed food situation, right? Where maybe I'm buying some of those sliced apples, but then I'm not buying a number of apples. I might just be buying a little tin with apple slices. So we're going to use integer here because I'm stuck using only whole numbers. Okay, and then I'm going to do a println here. And then just for formatting here, I'm going to do another line, and I'm going to say print, and you want, sorry, this should be println. And I think this is going to look pretty, I don't know. We'll see here in a second. So I think that I'm done. Let me just look through what I've done here. I take in the username, then I take in the number of apples, then I take in the number of oranges. I don't like this format here. Okay, and then we're going to print our two lines. Let's see if this will actually work out here. So my name is Fox. I want 2 apples and 5 oranges. Okay, so it says num apples not defined, and that's because up here I said num apple instead of num apples. So let's try and run that again. And the formatting here still kind of is awful, right? And it's because I need to add a space on to all of these areas, right? Because it's just going to concatenate or add in the string. So I need to make sure that I am accounting for the spaces that I want to have. And then I also like to have periods, right? Because we're trying to create something that looks like a sentence. One apples and 5 oranges. Well, I just am terrible at this. So let's just submit and continue. user inputs 3 apples should output 3 apples. If the user inputs 3 apples, your code should. Okay. I needed semicolons. I don't know why it's running without semicolons. I'm wondering if that's going to be a thing. Yeah, so it was looking for the word apples at some point in there. That's interesting. So that's what my mistake was. All right, cool. So we're done with lesson 2. So that was, we're done with user input. So now we're on to lesson 4, which is basic math in JavaScript.
Hi, in this video we are going to learn about basic math in JavaScript. So now that we have variables and user input, we can do basic math. So this program that I've listed here, it's our first calculator program. It allows us to add 2 numbers. So here we're reading an int from the user called first, and we're reading another int from the user called second, and then we're summing those into a variable called sum, and then we're printing the sum. So let's go into our editor and write up this program. Okay, so we'll make a variable called first, and the value we're going to get by reading in an int from the user called first. Then we'll get a value called second. So we're going to read 2 values from the user. Then we'll make our sum equal to first plus second, and we'll print line sum. Let's run that program. So if we have 8 and 10, the result is 18. So there are a number of arithmetic operators in JavaScript. So we can use the plus for addition, the minus for subtraction, the star for multiplication, the slash for division, and the percent sign for modulus. So modulus is probably a new one. We'll get back to that in a minute. But let's just see some basic examples. So if we say var x is equal to 4 and var y is equal to 8, then if we print x plus y, we'll get 12, or y minus x, we'll get 4, x times y, we'll get 32, and y divided by x, we'll get 2. So the basic rules of arithmetic apply here. But you might be wondering, what the heck is a modulus? So modulus means we divide and we take the remainder. It's the remainder operator. So as an example, we'll look at 17 mod 5. And so, well, what we do is we say, what's 17 divided by 5? Well, that's 3 with a remainder of 2. So if we look over here on the right, if we look at the long form of division, we'll see it goes in 3 times. That's 15, but we have 2 left over. So 17 mod 5 is 2. A few other important things to know when working with these values in JavaScript is about how to increment and decrement a variable. So it's very common to want to add one or subtract one to a variable. So if we have a variable called counter and we want to add one to it, we could say counter is equal to counter plus 1. So we'll take the old value of counter, add 1, and then assign it to counter. But there's a nice shortcut for that, which is just counter plus plus. So plus plus means add 1. Similarly, there's a decrement operator, which is minus minus. So to add 1 to x, we would say x plus plus, or to subtract 1 from x, we would say x minus minus. There's a number of other shortcuts, though, because it's also very common to want to modify the current value by adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing another value. So for example, if we have x and we want to set x equal to x plus y, as a shortcut we can say x plus equals y. And similarly for minus, times, and divides. So using this, let's go and write a few example programs. So the first thing we want to do is write a program that will convert US dollars to pounds. So we'll start off by printing out what the program will do. So this program converts US dollar to Great Britain pound. So what we'll do first is read in the number of dollars from the user. So we'll say var dollars is equal to, and since the dollars can be a fractional amount, we'll say read float, and then we'll say prompts. So what I've done up here is write var.
Okay, and you guys can watch through. I
So
understand
we have
what this is going
100
to
US
have
dollars.
us do.
So
you guys can
what
go
we'll
ahead and
do
watch that whole
is
video
we'll say,
if you'd like.
okay, well, the number of operator. So we say the people left is people value. So what we're going to use here is we're going to use a function examples of how to do basic math in JavaScript.
Okay, so I'm just going to, oh dang it, I think it had hit the wrong button. Okay, good. So for you guys, I would recommend watching the entirety of that video just because this is a lot of math that is coming into it. Obviously, this is all old territory for me, so I'm not going to watch that whole video, but I encourage you guys to watch that whole thing. Okay, so 2 plus 2, it's going to do, it sees that it's numbers, right? It's going to do a println, but it's going to print the output of those things. Division is going to be a single slash. What symbol is for multiplication? These are common across pretty much all programming, is that these symbols define what we're trying to do as far as operators go. Operators tend to be the same across languages. There's very few times where you're going to come up with a different or unique operator. Okay. This is his first calculator that he wrote. So the first number can be like a 3, and the second one can be a 7, and then it's going to output 10 over here. So pretty straightforward, pretty basic. Okay, and then this is his second example that he showed us. This was the dollars to pounds, right? So it's a program that will convert dollars to pounds. So we're going to input some dollar amount. I'm going to say 15.34, so $15.34, and we're going to see how many pounds that is. So that ends up being 9 pounds and 91 shillings. I don't know what their secondary currency is or what their smaller currency is. Okay, and then this is another example. So this is dividing people into groups, right, to tell us how many groups of people we can make. This is interesting right here. So this is math.floor, right? So that's going to cast or create an integer out of a float. So this is actually an interesting thing. I've never seen something like this before as far as calling it math.floor. So that probably means that it's rounding down. So the people and the people per group, right? And then the mod operator or modulus, the remainder operation, is going to help us find the remainder of the group. So let's just say that we have 65 people and I want to divide them into groups of 3. So people per group, there are 21 groups, right? So that's where math.floor came into play. So it rounded down, and then we had 2 people left over. Okay, so here's an exercise. Write a program that asks the user how many t-shirts they would like to buy, and then prints out the total cost. You should declare a constant at the top of your program called cost of shirt and set it equal to $15. So first I'm going to declare that constant. So, and I don't know if, I think that we just have to say I'm trying to figure out, so it mentions a constant, right? And I remember in Swift, we had to distinguish between a variable and a constant. A lot of programming language don't make that distinction. They just use a var for everything. let's see, variables. Okay, that's the first instance of constant. Okay, so it's just a variable. So it's just a special variable that we call a constant, but there's nothing special about how we declare it. So the variable cost of shirt. And so this is probably the distinction here, is that I imagine that constants in JavaScript are all going to be uppercase snake case here, where every letter is capitalized and you have these little lines in between each word. So that's going to be 15. So each shirt will cost me $15. Okay, write a program that tells you how many shirts you would like to buy and then prints out the total cost. Okay, so we can just do a var, right? And we can say num shirts, right? So number of shirts is equal to, we want to take in the integer of the number of shirts. I can't buy half a shirt, right? So I'm going to say read int okay, then prints the total cost. Okay, so and so the cost is just going to be the cost of shirt and it may not like me here. It may not like what I'm about to do here, but we'll find out. And the reason why I think it may not like what I'm about to do is that I'm going to be printing a number, and it doesn't really like it when you do something like this. So, and I remember in the video, it was trying to tell me not to do something like this. But let's find out. Let's go and run the code. I want to buy 10 shirts. Okay, total cost is 150. Let's submit and continue. All right, that wasn't that hard. Okay, write a program that asks the user how far they ran in miles and how long it took them in minutes, and print out the speed in miles per hour. Okay, so how far they ran in miles and then how long it took them in minutes. Okay, so we want to do miles per hour, right? So let's just talk about the math that's going to go into that. So we're talking about miles per hour. Okay, so miles per hour is equal to miles divided by the number of hours that it takes, right? But we're not collecting that in we're not collecting the number of hours, right? We're collecting the number of minutes, right? So what we need to do is we need to figure out the conversion ratio between hours and minutes, right? So hours, so 1 hour so if I'm doing 1 hour is every 60 minutes, right? So if I take some number of minutes, right? So I have X minutes times 1 over 60. that'll give me the number of hours that I'm going to get, right? Because I'm going to cancel out minutes, right? And I'm going to end up with the number of hours that I ran. Okay, so I just need to be able to put this into my code here in a second. So I just wanted to talk about that before we started doing it, because that is going to be essential here, right? We need to take those minutes and we need to convert them into hours before we can calculate miles per hour. And let's go ahead and close this comment. Okay, and we can start coding. Okay. And I'm just going to create that constant. Yeah. We're going to call this hour conversion, or hour conv for short, and we'll just declare that as one over 60, and we'll say converts that converts minutes to hours. All right. So we need to take in the user input. This is a long lesson. I think that we're just going to get through using graphics, and then we're going to have to stop after that because we are not going to have enough time. So write a program that asks the user how far they ran in miles and then how long it took them. Okay, so the first thing is going to be var distance. We'll call that distance equals read int. And actually, we're going to do read float because they may have run a mile and a half. They may have run a mile and a quarter, something like that. So okay, and then our next, I'm going to go ahead and expand this because this is not enough space to work. Okay, and then I can do a quick little conversion here, and I can say, let's say time I'm just going to go ahead and do this on the front end because that's going to make it easier for me. Times, and then the hour conversion. Okay, and so now I'm ready to do speed, right? I can define var speed as distance divided by time hour. And the reason why I'm doing it this way, right? So you notice that I did this extra line here. I did the time hour here before I even decided to do the speed at all. And it's just a bookkeeping measure, right? It just makes it so that my code is more readable later because I declare that constant and I don't have to think about it again. So it's a way for me to think a little bit less as I'm going through the logic of everything. Because otherwise what's going to end up happening is I would have to have some parentheses here, right? Where I would have to have time minutes times my hour conversion or something like that. And I just don't want to do that. I just want to work with the time in hours. And then we want to do a println. Okay, and let's see if this is going to meet the requirements of my assignment. Prints out the speed in miles per hour. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if I got this right. Let's just say that I ran 5 miles and I did it in 55 minutes. I'm not going fast. Okay. Let's see if it likes it. Oh, it needs to ask the user for an... Okay, so I was wrong, right? So I'm missing a semicolon on line 17, which is this line. But more importantly, I was wrong with my assumption that it would take a float. So we have to do this as an integer. Okay. So that's the only difference there. All right, so this is the exciting part. This is the part that I'm really, really wanting to get into because this is going to allow us to actually do our games and everything like that. So we're about to get into graphics. So let's go ahead and watch the video for graphics. This will be our last lesson for today because it looks like there are like 4 examples and then there are 2 exercises for us to do. So this will be our last exercise for the day.
Hi, in this video we are going to learn about graphics. And so we'll start off with the artist's canvas. And so the place where we'll be doing all of our graphics is on something known as the canvas. And we start with a blank canvas. And the first thing to know about the canvas is the way the coordinate system works. So it's a little different than your normal coordinate system, but in the top left we have 0, 0, and going left horizontally is the x direction, and going down vertically is the positive y direction. So let's look at an example point. This is the example point 100, 200, so over 100 in the x direction and down 200 in the y direction.
So this is different from Swift and what we've done graphically with Swift before, because in Swift they do a traditional plane, right, where they say, oh, well, 0, 0 is in the middle and we're going to go up and down and left and right from there. Our new coordinate is going to be 0, 0 is the top left corner. And it's kind of interesting why that is, and I'll give you guys a video for it later, but ultimately it's because back when computers were first graphically generated, the way that they would generate the screen is that a little laser or a little sensor would start up at the top left corner, and it would work its way down throughout the screen. So it would draw each line individually, and so that's how the coordinate system 0, 0 was the start point for that little thing, because users normally read top down, left to right, so they wanted the information to be generated in the same way that you would want to read it, because they wanted you to be able to read it as quickly as possible. So that's why 0, 0 is traditionally at the top left corner.
As another example point, this is 200, 0. So over 200 in the positive x direction and down 0 in the y direction. So there's a few other important properties we might want to know about the canvas, for example, the width. So we can use a function called getWidth to get the width of the canvas. And similarly, we can use the function getHeight to get the height of the canvas. So the first program we're going to write, our first graphics program, is the graphics Hello World. So what we want to do is create some text that says Hello World and throw it into our graphics canvas. So let's go to our editor and write this up. So I'll write the code and we'll explain it a little more later. So our var text equals new text, and then hello world is what we want to say, and we want the position to be 100, 100. Then I'll add the text. So when we run this program, there you go. We get hello world at position 100, 100. So if we go back here, this is the code we were exploring earlier. What we're saying is that we want to make a new text, and the text should have the contents hello world. Next we have to tell the text what position to go to, and finally add it to the screen. Let's look at another example by making a circle. So here what we want to do is make a blue circle. So let's see how we go about doing that. So what we want to do is make a blue circle with radius 30 and centered at position 150. So we'll write var circle equals new circle, and 30 is the radius. Then we'll set the position of the circle, be 150, and then we'll set the color of the circle to be color dot blue. Then if we run this, oh, nothing happens. We have to remember to add the circle to the screen. So there you go. Now we have our circle centered at position 150. So if we look closely at the code, this right here, that 30, that's the radius of the circle. And then we're sending these messages telling the circle how to modify itself. So if we look a little more closely, when we said set the position to 150, we're saying the center of the circle should be at position 150. Now we are going to introduce rectangles. And to make a rectangle, we give it the width and the height. So the width is 100
So
and the
again,
height is 50.
If you guys want to watch the whole video, go ahead and watch the whole video. I prefer to get through this and then get to the, because they go through each of these examples as well here. If you see down here, so they actually give you the code for those things. So for me, it's a lot easier if I go through those
And we'll
examples.
set the position, so say
But if you don't understand this at all, if you have no idea what he's talking about, watch the whole video because it'll help you on the little quiz.
set position to be 60, 150. And then we'll set the color to be color dot red. And we'll add the rectangle to the screen.
And this is very similar to the graphics that you guys have already done using Swift. The main difference here is that now our start position is very different, right? So we're thinking about 0, 0 being that top left corner.
And if we look a little more at the rectangle, the two numbers here are the width and height of the rectangle. Remember to add it to the screen. With a rectangle, similarly, we construct our rectangle by giving it the width and the height. And then when we want to set the position of the top left corner, we say the name of our rectangle dot set position.
And then we have to add it to the screen as well. That's the other big difference, is that we can't just set it, we also have to add it to the screen.
And then we add it to the screen. And then we'll add that text to the screen. Enter it on the screen, and then we'll want to add or 2. And now we can add the ball. Now let's see what we get here. So great. We have the first part of our program. Next we want to add the text. Number.setColor, color.white. Things still happening. Well, what we forgot to do is set the position of the text. If I run that, okay, now we have the 8 kind of centered. And here I wanted the center of the screen, so I said get width over 2, get height over 2, but we just already used that expression and called it center x. So let's instead set the position as center x, center y. Okay. So as you can see, that's not exactly centered because when we add text, we're adding it with respect to the bottom left corner. So we actually need to subtract off.
Okay. So the bottom left, let's see what he's
half
saying
of the width of the label. So it's really center x minus number dot get width over 2. And center y plus number dot get width over 2. And this is because the y coordinate increase is going down. So we run that, now we have our 8 ball.
Okay, this is the part that is weird. Okay, so I'm going to explore that a little bit further because I didn't fully understand that part of it. Get width. So x in this case, x equals 20, var circle, new circle, x is being used as the radius of the circle. Oh. Oh, top right. I misread that. Not the top left. This would be the top left corner. top right is going to be the width of the entire thing. So the furthest right point and 0. Okay, this one is straightforward. Blue circle, right? And if I change, let's just change this to be 200, right? So I'm going to end up making the circle move down now because the y values are positive in the down direction. I know that's kind of confusing. When I first heard that, that threw me for a huge loop. Okay, this is the rectangle. Really, this didn't concern me either. Okay, and then the 8 ball, this is the weird one, right? So this is the part that I don't fully understand, and we'll see if it comes up again. Number, where's number? Okay, so number is the new text, right? So it is 8. Set font, center. Okay, so the number itself is initialized right down here, right? So what they're saying is that, let's see if we can get, if I use the letter A, this might become more obvious. Oh, whoops. I want to go back. Okay, so the A, right, if I don't, this is number.getWidth, so it is using the width of the number divided by 2. So it's talking about the center of this number. Normally, it's going to be talking about this point. This is the point that it uses to center the number. But we wanted to use the center in respect to the actual image that's going on here. So it's getting the width of A and dividing it by 2. And then it's getting the height of A and dividing it by 2 to give us this as the center point instead. I know that that's a little confusing. Hopefully, as we go along, that'll make more sense. Okay, so this is what we end up making here. We need to make a French flag. So I have a blue rectangle, a red rectangle, and then nothing in the middle. Okay, so we need to divide the width into thirds. So we need to define a blue rectangle, and I need to define a red rectangle. And the blue rectangle is going to have a height of height and a width of and then that's going to be the same for the red rectangle. The big difference there is going to be where we position them. Okay, so the red rectangle is going to have its center as, so is going to be so we want to get the width, so get width minus okay, so first we're going to create the width and the height, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay, and the width is going to be and we're just gonna, okay, so first I want to define the variables for this instead. So var we're going to call these bars because each of these is a bar. And we're going to call this divided by 3. Okay, make sure that we have those right there. Okay, so then var new rectangle, and that rectangle will have a width of bar width and a height of bar height. And let's go ahead and add and see how that looks. Oh, well that's the right, we're getting there, but we also need to change the color. And again, this is very similar to what we would have done in Swift. Which I realize now, as I say that, is that we did Swift in Computer Science 1, but not necessarily in video game design. So this may be a little bit less familiar than I thought it would be for you guys. And I really don't need a new position for this one, so let's just go ahead and run that. Okay, so that's blue. Now I want to repeat this for red. There's actually very few variables that I need to change. The main difference is where it's going to be, so I need to actually change the position here. Okay, so the x-coordinate. Well, I know that I want the x-coordinate to be about here, right? So that's going to be about 2/3. So what I can say is I can say get height, sorry, get width minus the bar width. And that'll be my x position. And then I just want my y position to be 0, right? Let's see how that goes. Okay. Oh, I have to use set position for red bar. Okay, well that looks pretty good to me. Let's see if it'll like that. All right, excellent. Oh, I'm missing some semicolons, which I don't know why it's letting me run the code if I'm missing semicolons. That's confusing to me. Okay. And I actually don't need those, so I can kind of clean this up. Okay, and you see there's only really one difference between these two, and that's the fact that I had to set the position of the red bar. I have it, it looks nice, it looks pretty, I can continue, I have all green circles, great. Okay, and now we're gonna make a snowman. Oh boy. Okay, so we have 3 circles. Okay, 3 sections, a bottom radius, a mid radius, and a top radius. Okay, so I can define the radius. Should all be gray. The snowman should be centered horizontally in the world and should be sitting on the bottom of the canvas. Okay. I am not feeling that adventurous, but if you guys feel adventurous, go ahead. Oh, great. So they give us those 3 radius. That's actually awesome. Okay, so again, let's talk about what we need to do first, right? Everything needs to be centered on the world that we're on. So I'm going to start with the bottom because we started from the bottom and now we're here. And we're going to go from there. So let's create my 3 circles. So I'm going to say bottom, okay, so we can do var with a radius of okay, so then each time I'm going to need to set the color, right? So I can say circle dot set color. And so this line here, right, circle dot set color is circle gray, right? So we're using some method called set color, which will then go to this thing called color, right? So somebody created this thing called color, which holds like every color possible, right? Every possible color arrangement. So we're going to another program that kind of is a directory of different colors that I can use and saying, hey, I want to use this particular color that you own. I'm going to have to set the position, but I'm not sure what that position is going to be. So we're just going to leave that blank for now. And then those 3 lines should be, and then we're going to add the circle, right? Add dot. And for now, I'm just going to comment that out. And I'm going to copy that code because those 4 lines are going to get repeated pretty much every single time. And we'll call this the BMT. So we have the B circle, the M circle, and the T circle. And then we'll just do our modifications of our code based on that. And actually, I really don't like that. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, and then we just have to do the same process for our top circle. And the reason I'm not using circle every time is because I'll be rewriting that same variable each time if I do something like that. Okay, and so we're almost done. Now all we need to do is we need to figure out how to center each of these, right? So I know that each of them will share the same width position. So it's going to be, we can just go ahead and define that up here. And we can say var width position is equal to get width divided by 2. And the thing that's going to be different is where they sit height-wise. Okay, so this bottom circle is going to sit, its center is going to be a distance of its radius above the bottom. So what we can say is we can define a variable and we'll just call it the B circle cent, right? And then that's equal to, this is going to be the get height minus the bottom radius. Okay, and then let's just go ahead and comment the rest of this out, and we're going to see if this first part works. And we're going to change the name of that. That's going to be the B height position. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, so as we go along now, we can go ahead and uncomment. Okay, so importantly, each one sits on top of the other one, right? So this circle is going to have to sit on top of the previous circle. And actually, this is going to be mid radius, and this is going to be the top radius. Okay, so I know that I want it to sit on top of the other circle. So I'm going to go ahead and set the position, and I want to create a variable here, and that variable is going to be the we'll call that the M height position. And that's going to be get height minus the bottom radius times 2 minus the mid radius. Okay, so why is that? Well, it's because I know that I have to sit it on top of this whole circle and then 2 of the radius, right? are going to be the diameter. So to get all the way up here, that's 2 of those radius, and then 1 more mid radius. And so we can call this the M and let's see what happens. Oh, we expected something. Let's just go ahead and comment that out. So the problem came from the third circle, which we haven't worked on yet. Okay, so there we go. There's that next circle. And then we need to do just one more. Okay, so I'm going to actually use the M height position here. As one of my variables, so I'm going to do get height minus, so that'll put me here, right? Minus mid radius, so just one more mid radius, minus top radius. And you could write that in a couple different ways. It's not super important how you end up writing it. Okay. All right, and let's see. Well, that's totally wrong. Okay, so let's do this the way that I'm supposed to. All right, now let's see if that'll work. Okay, so I'm doing something really wrong here. Let's see if the distributive property is just not working. Okay, so as expected, that does not work, and it shouldn't work. Okay, oh, because I need the bottom radius here. Okay, there we go. All right, so that's what we want. I don't know what was going on there. That was kind of weird. Lines 22 and 21. And again, I don't know why it's letting me run the code without the semicolons if it wants semicolons. You know what I mean? All right, so that's going to be the end of our exercise today. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and let me know. You can find this video on YouTube later as well. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Goodbye.